You know what nobody tells you about getting old? It's not the wrinkles or the aching knees that get you. It's that moment when your grandson looks at you after you nearly missed that stop sign and says, "Grandpa, maybe we should talk about your driving." That happened to me 3 years ago when I was 81. And let me tell you, it shook me more than any close call on the road ever did. I've been driving for 67 years. Started when I was 16 in my daddy's old Ford pickup, grinding those gears until I thought the transmission would fall right out onto the dirt road. Back then, we didn't have power steering or fancy backup cameras. Hell, we were lucky if the radio worked. But you know what? We learned to really drive, to feel the road, to sense danger before it happened, to respect the machine we were operating. But here's the thing they don't tell you when you're young and invincible behind that wheel. Time changes everything, and I mean everything. Your eyes that could spot a deer a quarter mile away at dusk, they start playing tricks on you. Those reflexes that saved you from that drunk driver back in '73, they're just a hair slower now. And that confidence you had merging onto the interstate, sometimes it turns into white-knuckled anxiety. I remember the exact moment I realized things were changing. It was a Tuesday morning. Nothing special about it. I was driving to meet my friend Harold at our usual diner for coffee and eggs over. Easy, same as we'd done every Tuesday for 15 years since we both retired. The sun was hitting my windshield at just the wrong angle, and for a moment, just a split second, I couldn't see the red light. By the time my eyes adjusted, I was already halfway through the intersection. Thank God it was empty, but I pulled over right after, my hands shaking like leaves in a storm. That's when I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was the same, as it always was. You see, when you've been independent your whole life, when you've driven across this entire country more times than you can count, when you've been the one taking everyone else to their appointments and grocery runs, admitting you need to change how you drive feels like admitting defeat. But sitting there on the side of the road that morning, I realized something important. It's not defeat, it's wisdom. It's the same wisdom that tells you to wear reading glasses when the menu gets blurry, or to use a cane when your hip acts up. It's adapting so you can keep doing what you love safely. The first thing I did was talk to my doctor, not just my regular physician, but my eye doctor too. Turns out, I had the beginnings of cataracts. Nothing major yet, but enough to affect my vision in bright sunlight. She gave me special glasses with anti-glare coating, and let me tell you, it was like someone had cleaned a dirty windshield I didn't even know was dirty. Suddenly, I could see clearly again, but she also told me something that stuck with me. She said, "Robert, your eyes aren't the only thing that changes with age. Your neck flexibility, your reaction time, your ability to judge distances, they all change too. The key is knowing how to compensate." So I started paying attention, really paying attention. I noticed I had trouble turning my head all the way to check blind spots like I used to. My neck just didn't want to cooperate anymore. So I adjusted my mirrors differently, got those little convex ones you stick on your side mirrors. Took some getting used to, but now I can see everything without straining my neck. I noticed driving at night was getting harder. Those oncoming headlights seemed brighter than the sun, and street signs were harder to read. So I started planning my trips during daylight hours whenever possible. When I absolutely had to drive at night, I'd take the routes I knew best, where I could navigate by memory if needed. But the biggest change I made, I swallowed my pride and took a senior driving course. At first, I was embarrassed. Here I was, a man who'd taught all 3 of his kids to drive, sitting in a classroom with a bunch of other gray hairs learning about driving. But you know what? It was the best thing I ever did. The instructor, a young woman named Sarah who couldn't have been older than my granddaughter, treated us with such respect. She didn't talk down to us or make us feel foolish. She simply showed us how cars had changed, how roads had changed, and how we could change with them. I learned that those newfangled roundabouts that started popping up everywhere weren't designed to confuse old folks like me. They actually reduced serious accidents by 75%. I learned about the 3-second rule for following distance, which I'd been teaching as to seconds for decades. I learned that my reaction time at 84 was almost a full second slower than when I was 30, which doesn't sound like much until you realize that at 60 miles per hour, that's an extra 88 feet of stopping distance. The course also taught me practical things, like how to adjust my seat position to help with that limited neck rotation. Sitting up higher and moving the seat forward a bit gave me better visibility without straining. They showed me exercises to maintain flexibility. Simple stuff, like shoulder rolls and neck stretches, but they made a difference. They even had us practice emergency braking in a safe environment, and I was shocked at how much pressure these new anti-lock brakes needed, compared to the old systems I was used to. But perhaps the most valuable lesson wasn't about driving technique at all. It was about planning. Sarah encouraged us to think about our driving like a pilot thinks about flying. Check the weather before you leave. Plan your route to avoid construction or heavy traffic. Leave early so you're not rushed. Take breaks on longer trips. Simple stuff. But when you put it all together, it makes driving so much less stressful. I started implementing these changes gradually. My wife, Margaret, noticed right away. She said I seemed more relaxed behind the wheel. The truth was, I was. By acknowledging my limitations and working around them, I actually became a better driver than I'd been in years. I wasn't fighting against age anymore. I was working with it. Of course, not everyone understood. My son, Michael, he still worried. Every time I'd visit him and his family, he'd offer to pick me up instead. "Dad, you don't have to drive all that way," he'd say. "I don't mind coming to get you." But driving to see my grandkids, taking them for ice cream in my car, these things mattered to me. They were part of who I was. So I compromised. I started calling him when I left, and when I arrived. I avoided driving during rush hour. I took the back roads instead of the interstate when I felt more comfortable doing so. There was one incident that really tested my new approach. I was driving to the pharmacy on a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind of rain that turns the roads into mirrors and makes everything look different. I was being extra careful, going maybe 5 miles under the speed limit, when some young hotshot in a sports car came flying up behind me, honking and flashing his lights. The old me would have gotten angry, maybe even sped up to prove a point. But I just maintained my speed, stayed in my lane, and let him pass when it was safe. He gave me a gesture that wasn't very polite as he zoomed by, but you know what? I made it to the pharmacy safely. He probably made it wherever he was going a whole 2 minutes earlier. I know which one of us made the smarter choice. The pharmacy trip reminds me of another important point. Medications. Lord knows, at my age, I take enough pills to stock a small pharmacy myself. Blood pressure, cholesterol, arthritis, you name it. But I learned from my doctor that many of these medications can affect driving. Some make you drowsy, others can cause dizziness, and some affect your reaction time. I started having honest conversations with my doctor and pharmacist about my medications and driving. We adjusted timing on some, switched others to alternatives, with fewer side effects. It's amazing how much difference it made. I also had to confront some hard truths about specific situations. Parking lots, for instance. They're like the Wild West. Cars backing out without looking, pedestrians appearing from nowhere, shopping carts rolling free like tumbleweeds. I started parking farther away where there was less congestion. Sure, I had to walk a bit more, but my doctor said that was good for me anyway, win-win. Left turns across traffic without a signal became something I avoided whenever possible. I'd rather drive an extra block or two and make 3 right turns than risk misjudging the speed of oncoming traffic. Weather became a bigger factor too. I used to pride myself on being able to drive in anything. Blizzards, thunderstorms, you name it. But now, if the weather's bad, I stay home. It's that simple. Simple. It's like learning to drive all over again, except this time with decades of experience to guide me. I know that someday, probably sooner than I'd like, I'll have to give up driving altogether. Maybe it'll be my vision that finally fails me. Maybe it'll be my reflexes or my judgment. Maybe it'll be a combination of things. But when that day comes, I want to face it with the same grace I've tried to bring to this stage of my driving life. I want to remember all the places driving allowed me to go, all the people it allowed me to see, all the independence it gave me, and I want to be grateful for the years I had behind the wheel. Not bitter about the years I won't. For now, though, I'm still driving, carefully, thoughtfully, and gratefully. Every trip to the grocery store is a small adventure. Every visit to my grandchildren is a blessing. Every Sunday drive with Margaret is a treasure. I've learned that driving safely as you age isn't about holding onto the past. It's about adapting to the present and preparing for the future. So if you're watching this and you're starting to notice those changes in yourself, don't ignore them. Don't pretend they're not happening. Face them head on. Get your eyes checked. Take a refresher course. Talk to your doctor about your medications. Plan your routes. Use technology to your advantage. Know your limitations. And most importantly, never let pride put you or anyone else in danger. We've earned the right to be on these roads. We've paid our taxes, followed the rules, and logged more miles than most people can imagine. But with that right comes responsibility. The responsibility to acknowledge when things change. The responsibility to adapt. The responsibility to know when it's time to hand over the keys. I hope I have many more years of safe driving ahead of me. But whether it's 1 year or 10, I'm going to make each trip count. I'm going to drive with awareness, caution, and gratitude. I'm going to arrive alive, as they say. And when my driving days are done, I want to look back without regret, knowing I did it right. If this old man's rambling has taught you anything, I hope it's this. There's no shame in aging. There's no weakness in adapting. There's only wisdom in recognizing change and responding appropriately. Drive safely, my friends. The life you save might be your own, or or it might be someone's grandchild, parent, or friend. Either way, it's worth every extra precaution, every moment of patience, every adaptation we make. The road's been good to me for 67 years. I intend to be good to it for however many I have left. That's not just safe driving, that's life. Recognize what changes, adapt how you can, and know when it's time to try something new. If an 84-year-old stubborn fool like me can learn new tricks, anyone can. The key is being willing to try. So next time you see an older driver going slowly, turn signal on forever. Taking that turn extra wide, maybe give them a little grace. We're not trying to inconvenience you. We're trying to get where we're going safely, same as you. We've just learned that arriving safely is more important than arriving quickly. That's a lesson that took me 80-some years to really understand. I hope you learn it sooner. Your future self will thank you for it. There's nothing at the store or the doctor's office that can't wait for a clearer day. My grandson set up something on my phone that shows me the weather forecast, and I check it religiously before making any driving plans. Technology has been both a blessing and a curse. My newer car has all sorts of bells and whistles, backup camera, blind spot monitors, lane departure warnings. At first, all those beeps and lights were overwhelming. I felt like I was piloting a spaceship instead of driving to the grocery store. But once I took the time to really understand what each feature did, they became helpful tools. That backup camera especially has saved me from backing into more than one shopping cart. But I also learned not to rely on them completely. Technology can fail. Sensors can get dirty. Batteries can die. They're aids, not replacements for good driving habits. Speaking of technology, GPS has been a game changer. I resisted it for years. Thought it was for people who didn't know how to read a map. But my daughter, Lisa, finally convinced me to try it. She programmed in all my regular destinations: doctors' offices, grocery stores, church, family homes. Now, even if I get a bit confused or miss a turn, that calm voice guides me right back on track. It's reduced my stress level considerably, especially when driving somewhere new. But here's something important I learned. All the technology and techniques in the world don't mean anything if you're not honest with yourself. I've seen too many of my friends hold onto their keys long past when they should have hung them up, like my neighbor, Frank. Sweetest man you'd ever meet, but he had no business behind the wheel those last 2 years. His family knew it. Everyone on our street knew it, but nobody wanted to be the one to tell him, until he sideswiped 3 parked cars trying to pull into his own driveway. Nobody was hurt, thank God, but it could have been so much worse. That's why I made a pact with my family. I told them, when you see me becoming unsafe, you tell me. Don't wait, don't worry about hurting my feelings. My pride isn't worth someone's life. And I meant it. We even came up with a plan. Every year on my birthday, we'd reassess. My kids would ride with me, observe my driving, and give me honest feedback. It's not always easy to hear, but it's necessary. I also started being more selective about when and where I drive. Rush hour? I avoid it like the plague. Those aggressive drivers weaving in and out of traffic make me nervous now in a way they never used to. Late night driving, only in emergencies. My night vision isn't what it used to be, and honestly, there's not much I need to do after dark. That can't wait until morning. Long road trips, I break them up now. What used to be a straight 8-hour drive to see my sister in Tennessee is now a 2-day trip, with a nice stay at a motel halfway. My back thanks me for it, and I arrive less exhausted and more able to enjoy the visit. One thing that's really helped is finding alternatives for some trips. The senior center runs a shuttle to the grocery store twice a week. At first, I was too proud to use it. Felt like admitting I was old. But then I tried it once when my car was in the shop, and you know what? It was kind of nice. I met some neighbors I'd never talked to before. We compared prices on ground beef and debated which store had the best produce. It became social instead of a chore. Now I use it once a week and drive myself the other time. Balance. My church started a program where younger members volunteer to drive seniors to appointments. I signed up to receive rides, but also to give them when I feel up to it. It's beautiful. Really, last week, I drove Mrs. Patterson to her eye doctor appointment. She's 91 and doesn't drive anymore. The week before, young Tom Bradley drove me to my cardiology appointment because it was at a new office complex I wasn't familiar with. No shame in it. Just neighbors helping neighbors. I've also learned to prepare my car differently. I keep supplies that I never thought about before. Extra water, snacks, a blanket, a fully charged phone with emergency numbers programmed in. I have one of those emergency buttons that connects directly to help if I need it. My glove box has a list of all my medications and medical conditions, just in case. Some might call it paranoid. I call it prepared. Maintenance has become more important too. I used to be pretty lackadaisical about car maintenance. Change the oil when I remembered. Rotate the tires when they looked worn. Now, I'm religious about it. every service on schedule, tires properly inflated, windshield clean inside and out, lights all working properly. A well-maintained car is a safer car, and at my age, I need every advantage I can get. But you know what the hardest part about aging and driving is? It's not the physical changes or the technology or even the loss of independence when you finally hang up the keys. It's watching your peers go through it. I've lost count of how many friends have had to stop driving in the past few years. Each one hits me hard because I know it could be me next. There's my golf buddy, Charlie, sharp as a tack mentally, but Parkinson's took his driving ability. His hands shake too much to control the wheel safely. He jokes about it, says his car was tired of going to the golf course anyway. But I see the sadness in his eyes when we pick him up for our weekly game. There's Martha from church, whose macular degeneration progressed to where she couldn't see well enough to drive safely. She moved in with her daughter last year, and while she's grateful for the help, I know she misses her little house and the independence to come and go as she pleased. These experiences taught me something crucial. The goal isn't to drive forever. The goal is to drive safely for as long as possible, and then to stop driving before you become a danger to yourself or others. It's about quality, not quantity. Every safe trip I make now is a gift. Every time I arrive at my destination without incident is a victory. But I also know that someday, maybe soon, maybe not for several years yet, I'll make that last drive. And when that day comes, I want it to be my choice. Not because I hurt someone or myself. I think about my father sometimes. He drove until he was 89. One day, he came home from the hardware store, parked the car in the garage, came inside, and handed my mother the keys. "I'm done," he said. Just like that. When I asked him about it later, he said he'd had a moment of confusion at a familiar intersection. Couldn't remember for just a second which way was home. It scared him enough to know it was time. That took incredible courage and wisdom. I hope I have that same clarity when my time comes. In the meantime, I keep adapting. Last month, I discovered that my new car has a feature that reads street signs aloud. Brilliant for these old eyes. I've started wearing a hat with a brim to help with glare, something I never needed before. I keep a magnifying glass in the car for reading small print on directions or parking meters. Little things, but they help. I've also become a student of traffic patterns in my area. I know that Main Street gets congested after 3 p.m. when school lets out, so I plan my errands for the morning. I know that the intersection at Oak and 5th has a short yellow light, so I prepare to stop earlier. I know which parking lots are easier to navigate and which ones are like mazes designed by someone who hates old people. This local knowledge compensates for some of what I've lost in reaction time and flexibility. My daughter recently asked me if I ever get scared driving. I told her the truth. Yes, sometimes I do. When a semi-truck passes me on the interstate and my car shakes, my heart beats a little faster than it used to. When I'm trying to merge onto a busy highway and everyone seems to be going 80 miles per hour, my palms get sweaty. When I'm driving in an unfamiliar area and the GPS loses signal, I feel a flutter of panic. But here's the thing, that fear keeps me sharp. It keeps me from getting complacent. Complacency is dangerous at any age, but it's deadly when your abilities are diminished. I've made peace with driving differently now. I'm that car going exactly the speed limit that younger drivers curse at. I'm the one who comes to a complete stop at stop signs, counts to 3, and then proceeds. I'm the one with my turn signal on for what seems like a mile before my turn. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'd rather be the careful old man than the reckless old fool. There's a dignity in accepting your limitations. There's wisdom in adapting rather than denying. Every time I successfully navigate a tricky parking situation or safely complete a challenging drive, I feel a sense of accomplishment that I never felt when driving was easy. Driving was easy.